There you go.
I think I've never taken a picture. I guess it's going on.
I just need to bring out my meeting for this. Was that Tuesday?
Yesterday I had my daughter. I'm not an Apple user. I
Yes.
really don't like Apple.
Press me.
And I
Okay.
texted with my senior. I'm like,
Yeah.
you've got to tell me some. I'm
good,
struggling
you
with my iPad. You've got to help me. She did. She
You guys all ready?
Yeah.
Ms. Diagana, are you ready?
Learned you good.
All right, it's 7 o'clock. We'll go ahead and call to order the October 18th regular scheduled meeting of the Weld 5G Board of Education to order. If you would take a moment to silence your cell phones and or pagers. Scoot your stool back,
Don't hit anything.
rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible with liberty and justice for all.
You okay?
Just makes a lot of noise. I'm fine.
Ms. Diagana, would you please call roll?
Monica Johnson.
Here.
Amanda Proctor.
Here.
Nate Fasano.
Here.
Jeremy Scott.
Here.
Michael Will.
Here. We do need to approve our agenda for this evening.
I'll move we approve as presented.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Reverend Scott, a second by Director Johnson to approve the agenda as presented. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Pose same sign. We have an agenda. Do we have any citizen comments on agenda items? We really don't have that many agenda items. There's not a whole lot to talk about.
More citizens.
We'll move on to the staff and student celebrations and recognitions. Superintendent Nielsen, do you want to lead us off on that?
I would love to, President Wales and board members. It's been a great couple of weeks. I think as we stepped into the 2023-2024 school year, we had a couple of new schools, one of which we're sitting in tonight. I want to say thank you to Dr. Krill and Assistant Principal Plaisant, sorry, Alan. I got all frazzled in my mind. Thanks for having us, and the work session was wonderful, and the two of you really are doing a good job of bringing us staff together and continuing to provide opportunities for this building to grow and be a leader for us in the district. And so I just want to honor that and say thank you both for what you're doing, but also for welcoming us here tonight. Over the last couple of weeks, we've also had a chance to see some of the fruits of what I think this board was looking for in building Roosevelt High School. And I'll call to attention just a couple of things that happened in the last since we were together 2 weeks ago. First of all, we had our first homecoming last week in the new stadium at the new site. Lots of firsts, but also lots of continuing tradition. We had a chance to see the rah-rah of bringing the school together and celebrating homecoming with some games, and our cheer team and our prom team doing what they've done in the other Roosevelt. We also welcomed in, though, or did the grand opening for the Exchange, and the Exchange is essentially a supermarket inside of Roosevelt for Roosevelt stuff. So everything that's sold in the Exchange is made by students at Roosevelt, from multiple different glasses or coffee mugs,
Cowboy hats.
shirts, did you say shower caps?
Cowboy hats. Cowboy hats.
Cowboy hats, yeah, thank you. Sweatshirts, t-shirts, all of which is designed by those students and then sold by the students. And what's unique, I think, for Roosevelt is there's also the business department who's kind of overseeing all that work. So you've got the engineering department, of which Assistant Superintendent Kramer and I had a chance to witness between the time we were together 2 weeks ago and now, a prototyping event where the engineering students were showcasing what they were doing. I think we shared some of those when we were together 2 weeks ago. But then we saw them in the Exchange. right? Those items were being sold in the exchange. Earlier this week, we had a first responder breakfast where we were able to welcome first responders from Weld County to come to Roosevelt to have breakfast in the restaurant and allow for our students to cater the event. And it was a wonderful student-led breakfast. The food was wonderful, but they also took care of bussing the tables and welcoming us in. They created the food and it was a great menu. So I think several of us had a chance to participate. Again, what that was designed for, a back of the house where we created the food, a front of the house restaurant style classroom that we utilized. Really, that was the first event we were able to do in there, with many to come. I think probably looking at some work sessions for our board meetings in that restaurant going forward. I also want to celebrate the month of October is National Principal Month. And so for us, we had all our principals and assistant principals together on Friday. We had lunch together. So we had a chance to break bread together, but then we also had a chance to just recognize and be grateful. And what was truly humbling, I think, for me was to listen to our leaders talk about psychological safety. Is that me? I'm talking to myself. Sorry, Google. We had a chance to listen to our leaders really talk amongst each other about psychological safety and how good things feel right now. And yet we, as a group of leaders, are also applying pressure to the system to continue to look at how do we become a great school system, which is right the goal for us, right? Is we've already talked about this as a high performance school system, but how do we become great? And we become great by continuing to improve our adult behaviors. And we got a group of leaders right now that are engaged with each other and engaged in the work and feeling safe about it. And that felt pretty good to hear the leaders talk about that. And both to hear them say that, but also to celebrate the work they're doing with each of them felt super good. I also want to recognize Friday was building level PD. And one of the things, right, as you think about how do we become great is by allowing the adults to have time to improve their practices. And so Friday morning was that by buildings, they had a chance to work on their practices and to continue to think about how do we improve those practices and challenge ourselves to get better. But you also heard Dr. Krill and Assistant Principal Plaisance talk about some work they're doing to move their system forward here in our work session a little bit ago. Milliken Middle last night had their fall festival, which provided families an opportunity to engage, games and music. And I think the Kona Ice Truck was out there. What's a family event without the Kona Ice Truck? I'm not sure, but that it was there. And then I think you've all had a chance to see the learning by design that we just learned about today, that the new middle school plan has been recognized as an outstanding design by that magazine. So nationally, it's been recognized as a really cool, really cutting edge design. And that's a testament to, I think, the plans that this board has put in place over the last several years. And then my last celebration, I want to actually invite Tammy Kramer to read a passage today from a parent of ours. But I'll preface it by saying our administrative team at Elwell challenged their students and their community to some fundraising goals. And they were kind of blown away they set this goal that if we actually fundraise more than we did last year with less students, then we'll do a rooftop sleepover. And so both Tucker and Ken slept on the roof earlier this week. And I think we got
Last night,
last night, yeah.
Yeah.
We got some celebrations and they had a pulley system so people could bring stuff so they could get it up on the roof. And they got a gift, I think, delivered by drone, a couple candy bars, and but we got a fascinating email. So I'd love, Tammy, if you'd read that to us.
So I love the subject, and this is from Mr. Willard, and it says, I think sleeping on the roof was a success. And so he says a few things about it. And then here's a quote from a parent. You guys have truly outdone yourselves. I am beyond grateful that my kids are lucky enough to go to Elwell. This whole night was amazing. The low-key families chatting while kids played. Then you guys calling families to thank them for coming. These are core memories our kids will carry forever. Then the bedtime stories tonight were amazing. When Mason is on the PTO in 30 years, she will bring up this night to the families so they can replicate that. All that to say, thank you from the bottom of our hearts. You've created a family and I am forever grateful. We thought that was a great celebration for tonight.
Wanted to make sure you heard that. And I think that's a good place for me to stop, culminate my remarks, so.
Okay.
Well, I was gonna celebrate the Tucker and Ken as well, but I did want to call out, they had scheduled their sleepover for a week ago when the storm front came in and chose not to do it that night when it was so cold. But no, that was great for them. I was glad to get to hear that it went so well for them. So
I've got,
just
and
gotta
I'll,
tease them a little bit.
I'll share it with you guys. But they were texting me pictures last night, and I'll if I can remember, I'll email them to you because they're pretty fun. So, any other celebrations that we want to? That was a heck of a football game, I'll tell you that. I don't think I like exciting football games. I was a little too invested in that one for it to be that exciting, but that's a celebration winning that game. Okay, we can move on to reports and comments from board members.
I'll go first.
I'll let Jeremy go first. Okay. No, go ahead, Jeremy. Really.
We always start. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think I did get to extend the ribbon cutting at the exchange, which was really fun. It was really great to see the kids out there. They checked me out well, and I got a T-shirt and a new R sticker for my truck. So I got a CTE one. I'm pretty excited about. And then I got to wander around, and that's the first time I'd really been in the building during normal school hours. And I think the thing I was struck by, I think others have mentioned this before when they were there, is just how well the space is utilized as intended. There were kids, doing some quiet work back on the learning stairs. There were, the group space, the spaces that are supposed to be quiet were pretty quiet. The spaces that were more for, students to gather and talk and all that were more that way. The acoustics in that building just are mind boggling. So that was just great. It was really great to see all that. Probably should give a shout out to our school resource officer at Milliken Middle School, Officer Tope, who was kind enough to give me a personal education on the fact that you're not allowed to turn a roundabout, or you're not allowed to turn a U-turn in front of MMS. So if you're at MMS, you're not allowed to do a U-turn. I got to be a learning opportunity for the other parents as I sat in front of the school in my truck with his lights on behind me. Yeah, my daughter thought it was super awesome.
I think that was a good take one for the team.
Yeah, it was all right. It was all right. So apparently I got a warning.
No one has
everybody
the
was
law,
getting warnings.
Jeremy.
Everybody was getting warnings, he said, because the sign just went up. But yeah, no U-turn, which is a safety thing, and it makes total sense to me. I totally get it. So yes, that was happy to do that for us all. Yeah. And I did text ask Principal Aspen later just to say, hey, by the way, sorry. And she's like, yeah, we left when we heard. Okay. So and then finally, unfortunately, on a more serious note, longtime member, longtime educator in our district, Linda Young, passed away on Tuesday morning. Early in the morning, she was home, which is what she wanted to be, and surrounded by friends and family, which is good. All of her kids and grandkids were there, which were good, which was very good, and that's really what she wanted. Her service will be next Tuesday at 11 o'clock at the Methodist Church in Johnstown. So one thing for us, I would expect to see a lot of substitute requests.
I was gonna say,
Or
all the subs need to be there.
for that, her daughter teaches at Pioneer Ridge, and just real deep connections. A lot of people who are parents now in this community with students in the district now were her students throughout. We have several in our preschool, and we have several throughout the district. So that will no doubt be a big service, but it's good. So that is 11 o'clock on Tuesday at our church. So we will be doing that. Something we thought.
We're gonna ping pong.
You sure? Just a couple of things. Now I gotta remember what they were. Sheesh. Well, first of all, I want to celebrate being back in this building again. This just what a huge transformation for this building. The staff has bought into what's going on here. The leadership here has been amazing to hear about all we heard about earlier tonight. I think great things are in store. Great things are already happening in this building, but greater things are in store for what's going on here. So I'm excited to be here. Since our last meeting, we did attend, myself and Mr. Everest and Superintendent Nilsson attended the Berthoud Town Council meeting to update the IGA with them around cash in lieu. They updated it that night. So that has been done. We have the Meade Town Board is considering that right now. I think maybe at their next meeting, we will hopefully have a decision from them. We are on the docket for Greeley in early December. So that is all the municipalities in our district that are represented will have considered or updated that IGA. So that's a good thing. As far as funding for all these new homes that are going up in our district. And then the CASB delegate conference was a week ago, I think. It's a long weekend of voting on lots and lots of resolutions. But it was good. They have a conference before. We talked a lot about onboarding new board members, which we will have to do at least one of soon. They talked a lot about CTE and kind of the work that other districts are doing and some best practices from across the country. And what I took away from that is we are doing things pretty well here. So that was good to be part of. I do have the CASB. I think we all actually got emailed the CASB resolutions that they'll consider in December. If you have questions about those or want to know why one got voted the way it did or whatever, I'm happy to share that with you all. I won't bore us all with the time here in the meeting, but it was a good meeting. And then we'll vote on those resolutions, on the final version of those resolutions at our conference in December at the Broadmoor. So I think that's it for me.
Okay.
No, the voting want to be, oh no. Yeah, it's good. All right. So what have I done? Last week I had a day off of work, so Miss Kramer, tour guide Barbie'd me around RHS, which is good. I got to see the exchange while the kids were working it before the grand opening. I wasn't able to attend. They were very excited for anybody to go on, which is really fun to see their excitement to serve others. And they're very open to sharing where the things are coming from and who was designing them. And so I think it's good. I think they have a good smattering of between price points and goods within the store. And I think that's really positive so that anybody can walk in that store and buy things. They're talking about inventory levels and very into doing that. And it's very exciting. Miss Borson was very engaged with the students during the time, which is very nice to see. We also got to walk through plant sciences and into the greenhouse and watch part of a show choir rehearsal. That music teacher, he was very positive and very excited, and it was just a normal class. And so I was unable to attend that concert, but I think his engaging with the kids was really nice, and he's so positive and really just excited. And I like the way that he taught the kids that weren't there to learn the choreography. He didn't demean them. He just said, dance until you don't know, and then stand over here and watch, and reminder it's not on Google Classroom for you to learn at home, but it was in a very positive manner. My girls have both danced, and I've been in the environment, and it can be very harsh environment in the arts in general, the feedback and criticism, and he did a really nice job of it. So I'm excited that he is with our district. I think that's it. So talking to Scott one day for breakfast, but it was been a good couple weeks. That's all you, Monica.
Yeah, I also just wanted to applaud the school here at Milliken Elementary. I haven't been able to tour yet, so I took my time and looked around as I came in, and I was here in the building during the different phases of construction, so I got to see glimpses and peeks of it. But this is like the HGTV total reveal, the awe moment, and it is awe-inspiring. I am so pleased that the students in this area get to come to school here. The leadership in this building is exceptional, and there is nothing but positive things that we could say. So thank you for hosting us tonight and for making this such a positive learning environment. And the other thing I wanted to mention is when students are out of school on Fridays, some of the time, we at the library will piggyback on days off of school and we'll host events. And so while the teachers are learning how to be better teachers and administrators, we host students, and we hosted about 350 people at the library Friday morning. And we could not have done that. This is my board report without the leadership of the Interact Club. I reached out to the Interact Club and asked for student volunteers. And part of their service in Interact is volunteer-based, and really part of all of our graduating students is volunteer work. And so we never ever have any issues with getting volunteers in. They were phenomenal. I talked to the team leader. I said, this is where we need kids stationed. Would you like me to delegate? I think you could do it. She's like, nope, I got this. And rotated those high school volunteers through a lot of fun chaos. And to look back and watch the kids, the high school kids in those leadership positions is phenomenal. They did a great job, and we couldn't hold events without that partnership with Interact. So I'm so proud of all of the high school organizations, what they give to the community, what they give to the students, because it really does truly make a difference. So that's what I wanted to report.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I want to say thanks again for hosting us tonight. It's never a whole lot of fun to have to set up all this stuff for us, but we appreciate it. And thanks for the work session. I meant everything I said in there. I'm really excited about the direction that you guys are taking this staff, and I'm right there with you. You have the right team to do some really wonderful things in this building, and it's already happening. So we're excited about it. If we can just get Alan to leave Eaton, it'd be.
I'm gonna leave.
Don't you live there? Okay.
It's almost.
It's almost. I too attended the grand opening of the exchange, and I'm really excited about that. And that's one of the things that I enjoyed when I was giving tours over the summer and over last year, talking to people about, what this exchange, what it represents, and how it'll be incorporated and multidiscipline across the school. So, I mean, it's not just, one focused area. I mean, it has the potential to involve almost every department, every class, every interest and pathway that the students have into one kind of funnel, and to work together in ways that we wouldn't think about. And so I spent a lot of money at the exchange on
your car.
Thursday morning. Yeah. Following that, I did buy the cowboy hat, but that was for my wife. So I ran it over to her because it was Roosevelt Day at Elwell. They wanted everybody to wear their Roosevelt gear. She didn't have anything, so I ran that over to her. So I got to do a little walkthrough of Elwell, a little mini walkthrough. And again, what Reverend Scott said about seeing the students at Roosevelt. It's cool to go into Elwell, especially in Elwell, because there's some design elements in that building that I wasn't always on board with, and I questioned how they would be used. And it is so fun to go in and actually see kids and see students using the spaces the way they were intended to be used. And some of that is so non-traditional that it's hard to get your head around. But then when you actually see the students using it, it just makes sense. Interestingly enough, I kind of went on a little goose chase trying to track my wife down in the building, and ended up walking through like 4 or 5 different classrooms. And I know that's one of the concerns that the people in the community have, is that those classroom spaces are distracting, and kids will never concentrate, or you can't talk in them, or one teacher can't talk over in the other. When you bring when you bring somebody into an elementary school classroom, that's usually really disruptive, especially if it's somebody that's not usually there. And so as I was walking through rooms, I was kind of expecting to disrupt things. And again, it's just amazing how they have adapted to those spaces. The students have, the staff have. And in fact, one staff member was actually walking me through all 4 spaces within a grade level. And her kids were fine. The kids she were working with they were doing their stuff. And she would come back, we kind of kept circling back, and she didn't have to yell at anybody, sit down, get back. Like they were on task. And I mean, it was a well-oiled machine is what I was thinking in my head. So it's fun. It's fun to see those kinds of things. I did get to attend the choir concert,
Nice.
and it was really good. I'm so glad that we have sound because the last choir concert I went to, we didn't, and it wasn't so good. And it was interesting being I don't know how many of you have had the opportunity yet to be in the auditorium for a performance. It becomes a very intimate setting. And it's interesting because that is such a huge space, but when you get in there with all the chairs out, it becomes a really intimate setting. And then you kind of look around and you're like, but we could put a lot of people in this intimate setting. The kids did fantastic. The teacher he's so excited, and it shows, with the kids. So that was good. I got to do my auditor interview, but somebody that apparently you used to work with.
Yes.
And that's the most unnerving interview you ever have in your life because
Really?
because they ask you this question that's like 5 paragraphs long.
What was that question again?
Oh yeah. And I was like,
My favorite is like when you
yes.
go and you close the door and you're like, we need to talk.
So hopefully I haven't derailed the audit by my answers to the auditor's
We'll
questions.
soon find out.
Yeah. I did attend the EMS breakfast yesterday at the Branding Iron, and it was spectacular.
That's delicious.
Oh my goodness,
So good.
it was so good.
So delicious.
They had bacon, they had sausage, they had a quiche, this casserole made of French toast that was, holy cow.
And apples.
It had apples,
French toast.
uh,
It was good.
donut or cinnamon rolls,
It was.
potatoes. There's something else I'm missing.
They had fresh
Biscuits and
fruit,
gravy.
Biscuits and gravy.
And weird milk.
Something weird. It's fresh.
And biscuits. It was spectacular. And so these are the students that are doing this are both the ProServe 1 and ProServe 2 students, which I don't fully understand the ProServe certification, but the way it's been explained to me is that it's very similar to an OSHA certification that a construction worker would get. This applies to food service. So these kids will have those certifications, and if they want to go on further in the culinary arts, or they want to go to work in a commercial kitchen, they'll be that step ahead of everybody else. And so yeah, it was cool. And we actually had folks from all departments were represented. So we had Johnstown Police, Milliken Police, Front Range Fire, and Dispatch. Members of Dispatch were able to come for it as well. It was.
And they were so professional, the students.
They were.
They did such a great job.
And very attentive. I mean, that was that gal kept trying to take my plate away from me, and I was like, no, you got it. I'm going back for some more here. So just, I'll call you when I need just plate. It was that good. So and was one of the things I mentioned to Superintendent Nielsen sitting there, and I said, I know we're trying to cut back on doing meals at board meetings, but if we could maybe have a longer work session once a quarter or twice a quarter at the exchange and actually pay those students, Michael, for their catering services, I think that would be awesome, because the food was, I'd be excited to see what they would prepare, because it was just that good. I wanted to let you guys know about a couple things here. One, so we will do our swearing in ceremony on the 14th of November, which is a Tuesday night. And we're going to
Yeah, I will be at a conference that day. I am at the Colorado Government Officer Fish Financial, I don't know, CGOFOA.
Are you gonna-
Colorado Government Finance Officers Association's conference, Lord.
Are you gonna be staying down there then?
Yeah.
Oh, shoot.
So you guys swear in yourselves. Oh, what's the timeline? Is it 30 days after election that I have to
20.
be sworn in?
And-
Within the week.
Certification, yeah.
We can also do yours as a notary.
Oh, cool.
It doesn't have to be as an oath at a meeting.
Okay.
We can
Because I can come in Tuesday morning before I head out of town.
Okay. Okay, we'll get you
Okay,
covered.
We got it.
Yeah, I just don't want to get to where we were the last election, like, no. So we're gonna do it, but we are going to do it at Elwell. We're gonna kind of make a special night of it. Tressa Wagner is the music teacher at Elwell. She's putting together the Veterans Day program. And on my little mini walkthrough, she said, I wish there was another opportunity for these kids because they've worked so hard. There's just this one show. She's like, I wish there was something else we could do. And I said, let's have them do their songs at our swearing in ceremony. So
Michael, did you have a time on that? Just
right now we're doing 7.
7?
Yep.
Okay.
But just be aware of that. Reverend Scott will handle the swearing in for all of us.
Nice.
So
If we get elected.
if we get elected, all the candidates who will be seated, he will handle the swearing in.
I like it's good passing the baton.
And then later this month, we're going to Scott, Dave, Rebecca, and myself are going to give a tour to one of the policy analysts one of the policy directors at the Independence Institute. They put out this publication every year about CTE in Colorado schools, and we're not featured in that. And so we're going to change that. We're going
We
to just
should be.
make sure that we are featured in it. So we'll be giving a tour in a couple of weeks so they can see all the cool things that are happening at Roosevelt, and then we can talk about the awards with the new middle school and the CTE programming that's going to go there, and hopefully just put more good energy out about that programming and all the good things we're doing here in this district. So go through. That's all I've got. So anything else?
Just a question.
That was rhetorical.
The question is not rhetorical.
I've had people ask in the community if our culinary classroom, if they do outside catering. And I said, I don't know the answer to that. Do we know the answer to that? Or is it just in school type of culinary catering?
I think the desire would be that we move toward doing outside catering. I would say we're probably not ready for that yet. Even when I talked to President Wales, you think about the catering we do here, it would be logical that we would do that over at the branding iron so that they're not having to, they get to use front and back of the house. I do think we will start to have requests both for using the space and having them cater, but also to have them cater outside. And I think the desire would be eventually that we can pull that off. So they're labor intensive to pull off that and take the risk of doing it outside. So I think we've got some work to do to get there. But that's great that people are already asking
Yeah.
that. That's
Yeah.
Well, I mean, so those students they did the dessert at the golf tournament, which was,
Yep.
I mean, people were over the moon about those cream puffs they made. And then they also did, at the homecoming football game, they did a tailgate prior, and those students made some pulled pork, and they had a smoker in that room.
Oh, I saw
now.
the Traeger at the back. No.
And people were talking about how good it was. So I think you're right. I think we will get requests because they're doing a good job.
No, they're doing a great job.
So we should figure that out.
Yeah.
they may be more ready than I think they are, right? You just,
I mean, that's all been right there at the school so far, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
been
Yep.
very
It's
well
good stuff.
received, and I think
Yep.
it'd be great to get them out in the community if we
we'll
can.
see again when they do in 2 weeks, I think when we're at Roosevelt for the board meeting. That night is the CT advisory nights. They're gonna cater that. So that's a pretty big deal for them. So again, they're getting some practice using the space that we built for them. And I think you're right. We'll have to figure out how to pull it off on a bigger scale.
Okay, anything else?
When does the CT advisory thing start? on that Wednesday?
I can't.
I think 5.
Is it
I think it's 5 o'clock. I think they're gonna be there doing the work ahead of our work session.
I have a question about the scoreboard. About the sponsorship on that. I know we had, we talked about the scoreboard. We talked about it in theory about how awesome it was, and when people would see it, we would get increased advertising on the scoreboard to pay for that scoreboard, like it would pay for itself. I was curious to see if anything has really come to fruition. We're almost through the regular season and just kind of
I think
curious.
last
how
I
that's
heard from
going.
Chad, all the major sponsors are full. The middle sponsors, we have a couple spots left, and then the sponsors that are one below that are all full. We've had a couple who have come in since the school year started. I don't know that I could say it was a landslide, but I think, you probably know better about the money.
It's, and it kind of depends because it's, sponsors aren't locked into a contract.
Right.
So with a 90-day notice, they can get out of the contract, on both sides as well.
Right.
So kind of depending on who renews, how much they renew. We're, if everyone renews, we're fine. But with without being able to predict the future on who's going to renew and for how long, there's still kind of a risk.
Will the scoreboard cover itself this year, this physical year? Or no? And it's okay if you need to get back to me. I'm putting you on the spot. I should have emailed you to give you a moment to even look at things, and that was rude. I'm just kind of curious to see, because like I'm looking at it like we're through the regular season. I know the spring season will pull people with that scoreboard because we have girls soccer and track out there as well. But I'm just kind of curious where it's at.
I
That's all.
can definitely give you an update on
That's fine. You can do it later.
There's definitely been an increase in not necessarily sponsors, but advertisers.
Yeah,
I've
I do agree with that.
I've
too.
seen week after week that is growing.
We're using it better too.
Yeah.
We're learning to use and showcase the advertising we have.
Mr. Travis, when you get that report ready, if you include all of us.
I'll
Or
definitely
or
copy
at
these
least
into
me,
my report.
I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
That's it. I already work curveballs. Which I didn't mean to be a curveball. I'm sorry. I should have emailed you ahead of time.
Any other questions or reports or comments? All right, we'll move on to our superintendent's report, Mr. Nielsen.
I just have a couple. First of all, I was out today at New Roosevelt Middle School. And one of the things I just wanted to let the board know is we talked today about setting up time in the next week or two to try to get the board through, probably late in a week. That they were game. They asked, there's a couple things that they're really close to pouring cement. They thought that might make some sense, so you can actually see that before but a lot of progress since I've been through the last time, which is about a month ago. You can see it's moving quickly. Since we met last, we had our first parent, Assistant Superintendent Kramer and I had our first parent meeting with parent leaders from each of our schools. We met at the library a couple of weeks ago, and it was an awesome meeting, a ton of great energy, positive feedback, but also opportunities. So we were able to take some of that feedback right to the principal meeting and talk about some things we can take out of the parent meeting. So both parents know they're being heard, but also we can grow from the feedback we're hearing. So that was all for me, energizing meeting. I think it really was positive, and we heard great things from buildings. We heard a lot of great things from the parents who came from this building. So that was pretty neat to hear. We had our first DAC meeting last Thursday night. And as we went through, our administrators all had a chance to talk about their school improvement plans. And Jeff, who you've seen the last couple of years, is our DAC chairperson. At the end of it said the best one he's been a part of. So thank you, Assistant Superintendent Kramer, for leadership with him, and for our team for as they came and talked. They talked both about goals, but also about a look back and how we did with some of the goals from last year. So that was a nice event. Nate already talked about the town of Berthoud meeting, but I had a chance to talk to Michael after the meeting. A little awkward for me as a superintendent, and that I was there with Nate and Michael, and the town board was talking, and all of a sudden had a question, so I stepped up to it. In hindsight, as I drove home, I thought, it would have been a good thing for me as I stepped up to welcome the two of you that were with me, who ended up answering questions also. So I just wanted to just acknowledge learning. And it, for me, it was a bit awkward stepping into it, but I thought the 7-0 vote was awesome. And I look forward to, they were super positive about working with our district. Meade has been super positive about working with our district. Both of them, as I've had a chance to hear outside of our hearing great things about the district, which is pretty cool. And Bertha acknowledged it in the meeting, what great things they're hearing about this district. And that's what you want to hear, right? Is people that aren't necessarily completely affiliated with us yet, recognizing the power that this district has.
I was just going to add on that, and that it sounds like they're using it too as an asset
That's right.
to what they're building in those communities. So that's
right.
encouraging.
Which is positive, right? That's what a school district is, right? Is helps to define communities, and those communities likely won't have schools, at least not at first, right? But they'll have people that are benefiting from the schools in this district, and that's pretty cool. A couple board members know this, but I was invited. I missed our homecoming game, which is a little awkward for me. But I got invited to go to the CU Stanford game last week. And I was invited by the president of CU to sit with some other superintendents. And so I got to meet the superintendent for Denver, superintendent from Grand Junction. Thank you, Tammy. And the superintendent from Littleton, and they're working hard. There was a couple outreach individuals who were there, are looking to build partnerships and sort of pipelines, if you will, from Colorado schools to CU, make CU more prevalent in Colorado schools. So they've since reached out. They want to come see what's going on up here. And so that was an exciting night. And then the following night, I ended up having an invite to go to the CSU game. The same kind of deal. They're looking for outreach. And that was mostly Weld County individuals. And I think the big learning for me that night was the Weld County Boys and Girls Club director, who's new, been in the role like 15 or 20 days. We spent the majority of our time together that night in talking about how can we enhance our partnership with the Boys and Girls Club of Weld County. So again, a couple fruitful opportunities to expand the presence of our district in a couple of ways, but partnerships with our universities is a critical component of what we should be doing as a K-12. So I just want to let you know, those were a couple things that were on my plate in the last couple of weeks. I think that's it for me.
All right. Any questions?
I'm glad you did it. I know it's hard just homecoming, but I think that's a really great opportunity. So sorry about the game.
I left before they lost either one.
Oh, okay.
I will admit this, as I sit here, I was rooting for Boise State because my son is a Boise State Bronco. So I went to the game, under the guise of CSU, but I was rooting for Boise. So both nights, the team I was rooting for lost
That's okay. You
a
can
late game.
you can root against CSU. It's fine.
But he
It's not
he missed
okay. It's not
the Hail
okay.
Mary throw
I
at
missed
the
the
end
Hail
of the
Mary
game.
throw. That's right. I wasn't there for it.
So, yeah, that's great work to do outreach. That's amazing.
All right, let's move over to our left. Slide to your left. Feel like I'm calling a square dance here. Mr. Everest.
Thank you, President Wales, members of the Board of Education, and Superintendent Nielsen. Tonight, I'd like to go over a couple things in my CFO report. First thing being the financial statement review, give you a brief update on student count, and then give you an update on our food service meal count for the month of September. So first looking at just kind of some highlights in our financial statements. For general fund, we've received 42.8% of our monthly budgeted revenue in September. We've expended 95.49% of our monthly budgeted expenditures for September. You know, and again, the revenue number looks low. That's because of we won't be receiving any of our local property tax, which is a very significant portion of our revenue until much later in the year, in the beginning in the March timeframe. So that number is going to be low, and then it's going to be high. So just our overall general fund observations. Looking into individual school expenditure observations, all of our schools are doing pretty well with their monthly budgeted expenditure budgets. Millikan Elementary, where we are tonight, 102.91% of its monthly budget. Pioneer Ridge Elementary expended 110% of its monthly budget. That overage is largely due to spending on their HVAC system. So unfortunately, that's something we have to do. Elwell's operation and maintenance was 200% of its monthly budget. This was due mainly to catching up on utility payments. So when we transitioned from Sodexo providing our custodial services, we also used them for utility bill payment. So in the transition from Sodexo to the district, paying those bills, some things kind of got temporarily lost in the shuffle. So we're catching up on those. So that's why there's kind of a big bulge in expenditures for that line item for September. Millikan Middle expended 99.86% of its monthly budget. Roosevelt, 102.65% of its monthly budget. And you'll notice there is 124% of its monthly school admin budget. And that's largely due to just purchasing, new things, moving into a new building. So that's where that increase came from. Our universal preschool program collected 81.29% of its monthly budgeted revenues. And again, we'll be getting a lump sum payment for our 3-year-olds in the November-December timeframe. So then that number will increase. Moving on to district departments. Overall, our departments expended 80% of their monthly budget in September. Insurance Reserve Fund, again, this one has almost all of its expenditures in July with the payment of our SIDSIP insurance. So the spending 73% of its annual budget in September is to be expected. Food service operations collected just over 24% of budgeted revenues per month. The state reimbursement for August, it has been received this month. So, there's just going to be a delay in between submitting reimbursement requests and actually receiving them. So, that number is going to go up and, be much more current. And then food service expended 97.7% of its monthly budget for the month. Looking at our grants fund, we are starting to receive some state grant funds in September. Reimbursements for federal grants will be submitted beginning in this month. We'll begin submitting those reimbursement requests, and then 4 to 6 weeks afterwards, we'll actually receive the reimbursement cash for that. Looking at student activity, collected 154% of monthly revenue and expended 85.8% in monthly expenditures. Again, the high revenue amount, it's fundraising, at the beginning of the year. And then at some point we'll flip over and we'll be spending more than, we'll be spending a higher percentage of the budget than we're gaining in revenue. So as they do activities later on in the year. Our bond redemption fund, not much activity. Activity in September was from interest earned on the idle cash that's in that account. Won't see significant revenue collection until the spring. And we won't see significant expenditures until November, December, and June for this fund. Looking at our building fund, building projects are continuing. The primary one being the RMS remodel or retrofitting. And in a building fund, the local revenue in the fund is from interest generated on the idle cash we have in there. Capital Reserve Fund, there really wasn't any significant activity in September on this time around. And the over $59,000 in revenue is from Johnstown Cash in Lieu. So building projects that are happening in Johnstown. Looking at our student count update, as we know, count day this year was October 2nd. District staff is currently working on verifying student eligibility to be counted officially. In the count, we'll have a better idea of where we are in November, and final numbers are set in December. So that's when things will be locked in. And then finally, meal count update. So our food service program has seen a significant increase in participation year over year. This September, we had an average of 2,689 average breakfasts and lunches served. That compares to 1,929 breakfasts and lunches served, on an average day last September. So that is a 39.4% increase year over year. So a pretty significant increase, and that's really attributable to the Healthy School Meals for All program that we're in its inaugural year. This concludes my board report, and I can answer any questions the board may have.
Any questions for Mr. Everest?
Well, I'm not sure if this is more of a question for you, but I'm just curious. I mean, I know, one of the statements been said a lot about like students eating is like, juniors and seniors of the high school don't stay. And I'm wondering between the new building and the free lunch, if more of them are actually staying on campus, if there's a higher participation amongst juniors and seniors at the high school. And I don't know. I mean, I'm just kind of curious, I guess, but between having a really nice place to eat and free food, I mean, I'd wonder.
Yeah, I think we'd have to do a little bit of research on that to dig in a little bit.
I'm pretty sure we have that information.
Yeah, I mean, do we know? I mean, well, we've broken down by grade level too, as far as participating too, wouldn't it?
We should. I believe we should.
Yeah, but we should know which students. I think it'd be interesting if if we're capturing more kids staying, on property, which isn't a bad thing, truthfully. Less traffic, less opportunity for trouble, that kind of thing. But it might be. I hadn't thought about that as a potential side effect of the whole thing, but I wouldn't be surprised if that was the fact.
I do think though, Dave has set that schedule so that most juniors and seniors have their off block either before or after lunch. And so.
Oh, then they're probably not.
Well, anecdotally, I can tell you just from my students' observation, there are more students staying for lunch. I don't know about juniors and seniors necessarily, but certainly not all. There are still a lot of students leaving campus that day. So I would say more, but probably not all of this increase necessarily. So
it is interesting though. I mean, again, speaking about going into the building and seeing students use the space, I mean, it is such a casual lunch compared to what, I mean, we used to have the rows of tables and everybody was, I mean, it really does have that community college feel. And so I wouldn't be surprised.
It also is more challenging, right? I mean, where Old Roosevelt was right by downtown Johnstown.
Yeah.
And right now it's, you have to make an effort to get into where food is now. So
I was curious just to see if downtown was being affected by students moving to the other side of Johnstown. I don't know if we'll ever know that, but I was curious. It used to be such a hub for students.
And again, anecdotally, I think I've heard from a couple who are business owners in that space who are actually thankful that the numbers have gone down because they were saying it was becoming more of a problem than it was any sort of benefit to them.
Bringing in more revenue.
Yeah.
So just real quick, and I know you may not have an actual answer for us yet, but just in general, numbers are still up around 80-ish students overall.
So I believe it was 75 on count day, in our Infinite Campus system. That number has gone down.
I did.
As we, just as we go through the reconciliation process and, weed out students that aren't eligible to be counted.
Okay.
So I should have a much better idea next board meeting
Okay.
that I can share with you. It won't be final numbers yet,
Sure.
but a much better idea next board meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question on the Collar Trust account.
Yes.
So I like how it's broken out into the different funds because it's kind of easy and quick to see. And it's also informative of what's in those cash and lieu accounts. Do you think we need to call out Bertha, Mead, and Greeley as well? If for nothing else, it's just kind of a very blatant, obvious spot of how much cash and lieu is coming in from those jurisdictions.
When we begin getting cash in lieu from them, I mean, we definitely will have internal reporting on where that comes from. With the Colo Trust, I mean, we definitely could set up individual Colo Trust sub accounts for that. However, how our agreements with Mead and Berthoud, Greeley and Johnstown, they're all in the common cash in lieu account.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of a good way to be transparent about the money that's in that cash account that's easy for you to report on a monthly basis. That doesn't require you to like do something cool every month in your report that's different, is what I'm trying to think of, because I'm kind of curious and just in general of how much cash flow is coming in from each of those jurisdictions too, because it shows where the growth is happening. And I think for those jurisdictions, it's really quick and easy for them to kind of peek and see without having to ping you and you got to go look that up or you got to delegate that to somebody else. I'm just trying to think of an easy way to report that in a very transparent way.
I mean, definitely right now, if I had infinite visions up, I could tell you the revenue breakdown between Johnstown and Milliken.
Yeah.
From my personal standpoint, I don't know if we would want to necessarily have separate sub accounts set up.
And that's okay if you don't want sub accounts. I'm just, to me, it was just, you already kind of had that with those two jurisdictions. So I was thinking it might just be easy, but I'm just trying to just think of an easy way to be transparent about that, not just to me, but if somebody is looking at these financials on a monthly basis or a quarterly or any kind of cadence, thinking it's a trigger to remind people that RE5J isn't just Johnstown or Milliken. It has pieces of other jurisdictions that are contributing to it. And it's just kind of blatant and saying, these other jurisdictions are actually a part of us, especially as we look at growth on the north end of our district, the proposed growth, I should say, because I think when that news comes out, and it came out, I don't know, a month ago or whatever, in the papers, people forget that that's our school district. And I think by including it in a normal cadence in the financials somewhere about the cash and lieu, I think it'll keep reminding people, right? You have to tell people, I don't know, what is it, 7 times, Michael?
5.
5 times for them to like remember it, right? So like if you only look at the financials every once in a while, I want to capture them in that moment. So they can be like, oh yeah, we're getting cash and lieu from these other places. Because if you're my next door neighbor, you have no idea that Greeley is part of our district. You just think it's a really obvious place to put it in the financials. I don't know. And I'm just trying to make it easy for you. I don't want to make more work reporting things to report things. Just trying to think of an easy way. But I'll let you noodle on that. It's not like a hard request. It's just an idea of being more open with where the money's coming
That's
from.
something that would be relatively easy to add.
Easy, but she mentioned cool as well.
Well, I don't know. I could call the bill or something.
Money coming in is pretty cool.
Yeah. Automatically cool.
Cool reporting.
Well,
I agree, though. It'd be nice to see where the majority of the growth is happening in terms of translating that to cash and lieu.
Yeah, and it helps facilitate conversation. I mean, I wouldn't go to the birthday meeting, but if I was on those jurisdictions who are new to them, like Mead, right? That council was like, oh yeah, you guys are a part of us, right? I think it's really just easy to be like, yeah, to date we have $5,000 from this one subdivision or something. I don't know. Just a thought.
it's an interesting idea, but the good news is we have time
Oh
for
no, yeah.
most of them, because the development that'll happen in Mead won't be for probably a year. Berthoud doesn't actually have a development on the docket yet, But
Right.
if they do, we're gonna be building schools out there.
Yeah,
I mean, because they're talking about a lot of homes if that actually does happen.
yes.
Greeley, same thing. If there's that development actually goes through, as they're saying, we're gonna be talking about ways to facilitate for those kids. So it's an
Yeah.
interesting idea. I think it's a good way to look at it.
Other than that, I don't have any questions on your numbers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Evers? Thank you, sir. We'll move on to our consent agenda. Our adopted rules of parliamentary procedure provide for a consent agenda listing several items for approval of the board by a single motion. Most of the items listed under the consent agenda have gone through board review and recommendation. Documentation concerning these items has been provided to all board members and the public in advance to assure an extensive and thorough review. Any item may be removed from the consent agenda at the request of any board member. Otherwise, I would entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second. We have a motion by Director Proctor, a second by Reverend Scott to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Diagana, would you please pull the board?
Monica Johnson,
Yes.
Amanda Proctor,
Yes.
Nate Satano,
Yes.
Jeremy Scott,
Yes.
Michael Wales.
Yes. All right, we will go all the way down to new business and our only business tonight. And actually it's no action, but it's a update to policy KBD, public right to know. If anybody has any questions, I'm the one who brought the the proposed changes forward, so I could answer those if you have any questions on that.
No, I would say as I read it, I was like, oh, yeah, having definitions in there makes sense. So, the word means what we think it means, or everybody knows what the word means. So I think that's a good catch. So I actually was curious. I wasn't sure where the changes came from. So.
Yeah, and it was more to help kind of align with some of the stuff that we did last year as far as how information can be brought forward and how protests can be made on this policy. Actually, if you looked at the two of them together, the policy that we changed last spring and then this policy as it's currently written, it didn't actually work. And so this makes it so that it actually works. So.
I think the more explanatory the policy can be, the better off it is for especially members of the public. For those, this is one of those that might actually get read by a member of the public.
Right.
So I think anytime, and it might be worthwhile actually to just kind of think through if there's any other ones that tend to be a little bit more public facing, just to make sure that there's possible. So we vote about this next meeting.
Yes, so this will be open for public reading. This is the first reading. And yeah, the final reading is scheduled for November 1st. So
I have a question on it. On the dollar fee per hour seems low. The $33.58 an hour feels like someone on your staff who's digging up this stuff, or someone on your staff.
and that's how it's currently set. So
Is it?
we didn't make a change to that.
I feel like that $33 is too low, considering how much wages have increased over the last few years, how much taxes and benefits are. Like if you're allocating someone from their job, I know it, like we're not going to charge them your going hourly rate, but it needs to be some sort of blend, and it just feels
So I think that might be a statutory limitation.
okay.
I'm not positive of that, but I
That
think
sounds
I
familiar.
don't
That's
know.
Right.
that is
It just feels really
that's come
low.
up.
We can check into it, but I think that's right.
Yeah.
I think
and there was some conversation about this at the CASB conference.
Is
That
there? Okay.
they are looking at the legislature is looking at some changes to these laws. One, to allow school districts, especially, a little more time
Yeah.
to respond to some of these things, and two, to change some of these fees that are.
Yeah, because I'm
appropriate.
assuming
So-
like if I'm just gonna put myself in the superintendent's shoes. If a request comes in, I'm not gonna give it to like a volunteer to go dig up this information and hand it, right? I'm gonna give it to a highly competent person, because I want to be
Mhm.
very sure that that is exactly what that person asked for. So you're looking at a highly paid person who's actually fulfilling this request. But if
That
it
was-
stays statutory, that's fine.
That was actually my question. Is there an individual that is over?
Her name is Tammy.
Public record.
Awesome.
Six to 10.
358 is the max that
Is
we
it?
can charge. That went up in 2019.
Perfect.
And that's for anything over an hour.
Okay. Yeah, the first hour is free,
Well,
because that first hour doesn't count.
How long it takes you to fire up the computer?
all right. Any other discussion? Do we have any citizen comments on general topics? Any other items deemed necessary by the board? All right. Thank you again, MES admin team, for
Yes.
Thank
allowing us to
you.
use this space, and it is 8:04 and we'll adjourn.
Thanks for.
Cool.
Jessica, I didn't mean to short you. I'm sorry. I know you were just as important to us.